bloody war, which was newly declared now 2 years ago, the ones closest to the province, mountains, and villages of Navajo, which by their closeness to our settlements, have carried out many thefts, invasions, and killings since long ago. The township of the Villa of Santa Fe, 13 October 1705. Yo, el maestre de campo, Roque de la Madrid, de orden del señor gobernador, pasa a hacerle la guerra a sangre y fuego a los enemigos de nación Apache Navajo.
Greetings, I'm Roberto Valdez. New Mexico is full of awesome landscapes. I am a Spanish New Mexican, and I would like to take you on an exploration of my land and the heritage of its people. We are on the eastern end of the San Juan Basin, in Rio Riba and San Juan counties. This is an area rich in the resources that fuel our energy-driven world, such as coal, natural gas, and oil. It is traversed by several canyons. Some of them are the Rio Navajo, Cañón de la Jara, Cañón Gobernador, and Cañón Largo. However, we're here to explore things of more historical significance. This is the area the Navajo called their homeland in the 17th and 18th centuries. Their raids into the Rio Grande Valley brought the Spanish and Pueblo Indians out here on punitive expeditions. Join us as we explore what the Navajo called Dinetah and what the Spanish called La Provincia de Navajo. The Navajo homeland of the 18th century is called Dinetah. Beginning in the 19th century, it was called Las Tapiacitas, because this area is full of ravines and cliffs. The Jicarilla Apache were settled on a reservation on its east side in 1887. Although they are distant relatives of the Navajo, they came here from eastern New Mexico. They call themselves Dineh, meaning the people. Yet they are more commonly known as Navajo. So why do we use this word? For answers, we must go back in time to where it first appears in writing.
De la jurisdicción de Gila, from the Gila jurisdiction, when it hits the province of the Apaches of Navajo. Even though they are the same Apache nation as the before-mentioned one, they are subject and subordinate to another chief captain, and have a distinct way of living. And these of Navajo are very great workers of the land, for that is what Navajo means. Great planted fields. Friar Alonso de Benavides, 1630.
So we had the name Apache Navajo, or as the Spanish said it, Apaches de Navajo, which essentially meant the enemy who dry farm these arroyos. In September of 1743, a squadron of Spanish New Mexican citizens, soldiers, and Pueblo Indians passed through the province of the Navajo. They were on an expedition of exploration and were guided by a Christian Apache. The Navajo were at peace with the Spanish and Pueblos at this time, and even traded with the Pueblos. Few outsiders realized that the Navajo were not one united people with one leader and government. Some Navajo kept the peace, others marauded on occasion. One Pueblo could be their friend, another their enemy, or it could change the other way around. The Spanish, who visited the Navajo, found them living on the defensive from another tribe, neighbors to the north, commonly known as the Ute, or as we call them, Yutas.
Dichos indios viven en las cumbres de las mesas, en sus casitas que tienen de palo, piedra y de zoquete, porque les hacen guerra los Yutas. Juan Vigil, Santa Fe, 1745.
The Spanish called them casitas, or little houses. Most date from 1689 to 1752 in this area. Archaeologists call them pueblitos.
Pueblito simply means little pueblo. The term has come to be synonymous with a stone, multi-roomed, and sometimes even multi-storied structure, constructed either by Navajos or by Navajos under the influence of Pueblos.
Here in the side canyons of Cañón Gobernador is Three Corn Pueblito, one of the many little pueblitos that sit atop well-defended, high rocky places. In the little rooms you can still see the original interior plaster. There are passageways, storage bins, and intact ceilings. There are also little windows from which its inhabitants could defend themselves against the enemy.
It's probably the best example of why the cradle board was important. The site is a very precarious situation, and so you need some other mechanism to keep the kids from falling off the edge.
A prime example of defense against parties of raiding Utah Indians coming from the north is Old Fort Pueblito. It features a defensive fortress-like wall. Within this plaza are the huts of the people, known as forked stick hogans or chozas in Spanish. It's several poles put together, then covered with branches and earth. This is a remnant of an original that is still standing. It's about 250 years old. And in Navajo tradition, the doorways face east to greet the morning sun. This is Truby's Tower. Torreones were a safe place where people could seek shelter from raids and kidnappings.
That's probably as close to the concept of a torreon as any site, because it is a singular unit, almost exclusively for defense.
Most pueblitos had excellent views of their surroundings. Some even had clear lines of sight to other pueblitos across the canyons and down the canyons. In this way, perhaps, the people could warn each other through the use of smoke. In this case, to the pueblito of Las Tapiacitas. "300 feet above the canyon floor on an unlikely arid banco is this pueblito called Tapiacitas, sometimes mispronounced as Tapacito. What is remarkable about this is that it dates to 1690 and is one of the earliest known pueblito sites in this region. It's in a remarkable state of preservation, and this crawl space leads into one of the rooms that still has an intact ceiling. You can still see the original ceiling hole for the chimney. The ceiling is covered with split wood called rajas, over which are cedar bark and mud. It has latillas that serve as a pole rack, and you can still see the original whitewashing plaster.
It's an enigma. It's something that is not technically a pueblito as I have just defined it. And this is a couple of things. Number one, it's much more substantially built. Thick walls, big beams. In fact, they overbuilt it. For the thickness of the walls and the beams, it should have been a 4-story pueblo.
Since it is so dry in these canyons, the reason why a pueblito is built here is nearby. Tinajas, or tanques, with hundreds of gallons of water. Here on a banco above Cañón Largo is preserved for us one of the finest examples of a hooded fireplace. It dates to the 1720s. An idea brought to New Mexico by the Spanish, it was brought to the Navajo by the Pueblo Indian refugees. In the early 18th century, the Spanish and the Pueblo Indians organized themselves on expeditions to punish some Navajo that had raided the villages of the Rio Grande Valley. It brought them into what was to them unknown lands, events that may have been recorded here in Cañón Cuervo, with this. Among the petroglyphs, horsemen, riders on horseback, with hats and wielding swords. In 1705, Governor Cuervo appointed Roque Madrid to command 3 campaigns that year. Although the one in August is the least bloody, it is the one we know most about. Because of the journal that is preserved for us, we can follow the day-by-day events.
Yo, el maestre de campo, I, Field Marshal and Principal Military Leader, Roque Madrid, by order of the Lord Governor, go forth to make war by fire and sword on the enemy, Apache Navajo Nation.
It was a journey of over 300 miles, beginning in San Juan Pueblo and ending in Bernalillo. 100 soldiers and citizens and 300 Pueblo Indians attempted an element of surprise by choosing a roundabout way into the Navajo homeland. They encountered and captured 2 Indian women. They were separated and interrogated about how far the Navajo villages were. They said they knew nothing. They had left the Navajo to gather herbs. They were alone and their husbands were hunting deer. This happened somewhere near the present-day town of Chama. On the 10th of August, they consulted a map. Jeronimo and Pamuje were 2 Pueblo Indians that suggested a route that the enemy would least expect any of them to take, and where the most defiant of the enemy lived, through the Rio Grande de Navajo, which none knew the location of, despite the objection of some Jemez Indians that said that the country was too vast and rough. Roque ordered a march to find the river. In this country, some Apaches the Navajo spotted them. They left a line and crosses in the dirt, appealing to the invaders for peace. It was the 11th of August, 1705. Roque Madrid ordered everyone to mount fresh horses, and they attacked at dawn. They moved down this canyon, destroying cornfields and setting hogans on fire. Many Apache escaped to the tops of the mesas and shouted at them from there, out of reach. They then moved southward, destroying more cornfields and making assaults, the Navajo ambushing them all along the way. They then captured some women and children. They made their way, they reported, to a place called Los Peñoles, that is, a high rocky place, atop which the Navajo had fortified themselves. Some believe it may be this, also called Santos Peak. Roque Madrid writes of how the army was exhausted, how the horses were staggering with thirst, and how the Apaches from the heights were making fun of them. They clamored to heaven for water. A small cloud appeared, and then it began to rain. Roque Madrid writes, "We praised God." They lay siege to the mesa, and the Navajos asked for peace. But during the night and into the next day, both sides attacked each other and counterattacked, until by morning the Navajos had retreated to the very top, some falling off the ladder, and Pueblo Indians below scalped them. They hurled rocks over the cliff edge. Both sides fought each other with bows, arrows, lances, and muskets. Roque said their position was impossible to take. They were too strong in their peñon, so he abandoned the fight, and the Navajo wailed for their dead. The army moved south, Roque concerned for the great thirst afflicting his horses. But they searched and found water and cornfields which they destroyed. The Apaches de Navajo fell upon them without success, trying to drive them away. We're at the confluence of the Cañón Largo and Cañón de las Tapiacitas. It was here that on the 14th of August, 1705, Roque Madrid ordered 100 Pueblo warriors to secretly circle the mesa and attack the Navajo from behind, while from the front he distracted them with talk. He sent the army away so that it would look like they were retreating. He parleyed with the Apaches for hours because this country was so difficult to traverse. The Spanish and Pueblo Indians didn't appear on the top until hours later. Finally, a lookout sounded an alarm at the top of the mesa. All the Navajos began to run. Those from above and below attacked with lances, bows, arrows, and muskets. The Navajo ran for their lives, and the Pueblo took few prisoners. One man they captured and tied him up. The other end of the rope was held by a Pueblo. As they walked down the cliff edge, the Navajo prisoner threw himself over the cliff and pulled the Pueblo down with him to death. He was the only death among the Spanish and Pueblos. The expedition then made its way south. Here, the Spanish map from 1778 shows to a water source called the Ojo de Nuestra Señora. It is also known as Otero Ranch Spring. It was considered the southern boundary of where the Navajo lived in this region. Some believe this is the rock where Navajo left 14 crosses as a sign of peace to the passing army. Roque did not attack the Navajo of this place. They were at peace with the pueblos of Laguna and Acoma, and wrote, "So they'll know the Spanish make war with those who are their enemies, and keep safe those who say they are not." Like any people, the Navajo had criminal elements, some arising out of poverty and the need to survive. But the actions of a few brought suffering upon many innocent Navajo. In 1754, The governor of New Mexico wrote that he had helped facilitate peace between the Utah and the Navajo.
Han sido tan frecuentes los Utahs en castigar y hacen guerra a los navajoses que los han hecho desamparar la provincia. Tomás Cachupín, gobernador de Nuevo México, 12 de agosto de 1754.
By the 19th century, the Utah had pressured the Navajo to the south so much that the high mesas west of Lindrith, New Mexico, once the Navajo's realm, are here shown as the Heights of the Ute. Many of these sites I've taken you to are on public lands. Although you're free to visit and explore them, please use some common sense when you're around them. I hope you'll learn to appreciate New Mexico's rich history. Adios.